This is the closest thing I have, the closest equivalent to what I want to achieve with this next project. It's daisies in a field, but I want it to go back into the distance, and I'm going to draw you a little diagram of what I mean. This is based on a walk. I took a photo of the landscape and it was so pretty. I want to divide this into kind of quarters, I think, or thirds. So this section here, the daisies are the nearest us, will be the largest. We shall use a large brush for that. The daisies in this section of our landscape will be a little bit smaller, and we shall use a slightly smaller brush for that. And as we go off into the distance, the daisies obviously will be getting smaller. I'm thinking Q-tips, applying the masking fluid with a toothbrush, even getting to this section here. I'm going to change to a pencil because I don't want you getting mixed up with what I'm intending. The landscape stops about here. There was a grove of trees, and I can just fill that in with watercolor, and then this section here was skies. Let's take my large brush, detergent on it. First of all, I think what I need to do is decide where the daisies are going to be by just mapping it out using the middle of each daisy as a guide, just quite randomly like that. I'm going to be creating the petals going around like that, starting from the middle. If you've ever seen, a field of daisies, they are just pretty dense and they're all over the place, and nature isn't neat necessarily. The ones at the front in particular will have to be very dense, and then they may appear to be thinning out as your eyes travel up. So now I'm going to have the daisies a little bit further apart, and you may be able to see a few stems. And let's pick up the smaller brush now and do the same, but obviously slightly smaller scale. Oh, I must rinse out my brushes. I just want to add a few hints of stem here, just all at different angles really, and then I'm going to add the rest of the daisies. I've just had this idea, how about if I use a Q-tip now to add the middles? I don't know how that would look. Hold on, let me think. All right, just a few more stems, I think, because we're coming up to sort of the middle mark where I want to start having the daisies going off into the distance. Just fill these bits in, and then I'm going to add the petals using my small brush. I think I'm just going to draw in where I think the tree line should start. Maybe that's a little bit too high up. Yeah, I think that's a bit too high up. Let's do the tree line about here. So the trees will extend roughly to here, and then the rest is sky. So I'm going to fill up to this pencil line here with just Q-tip. When you're using your Q-tip, don't try to fill up the spaces evenly. Do it really random. And there's a few negative spaces in between the daisies at the front, so fill those up as well. Oh gosh, how did I fit this in there? When you're using a toothbrush, it can be very, very random. I think the best thing is to go over it several times to really get a good splatter effect. Now we have to let the whole lot dry before we continue on to the next stage. It should be fairly straightforward to fill in the green section, which is the background pretty much, apart from the sky, which will be in this section here, and this will be a line of trees. The green will start off quite dark with a lot of pigment, and then it will slowly become lighter as we reach the tree line here. So let's mix up some greens, a bit of the sap green and some of my viridian, starting down here. I don't want it to be flat, so I'm just applying it pretty quickly, and I'm going to add a little bit of yellow now just to this section here, and then we're going to go a little bit lighter again as we reach that tree line. And while this green is still wet, I'm going to add a few other greens, maybe a gold green, maybe the Windsor green, because I like a bit of variety. I think that'll do. I don't want to overwork it. Right, so now I'm going to deal with the trees, which when I observed them were pretty dark, so I'm going to mix up that viridian and the sap green again. It was quite dark against that field. I think that's it for now. We're going to let this dry and see how it looks. Just looking carefully at my daisy field, and there are 2 patches of watercolor which are still drying off. I must make sure that I don't start doing any peeling off while the watercolor is still drying, otherwise I'm going to really mess it up. This is looking really great. I like how the larger petals have taken up so much space in the foreground, and now we're moving on to the slightly smaller daisies behind them. Oh look, the stems have worked really well. That was the dip pen. Oh, this is getting into the distance, and I really love that, the speckly effect here. I think that's gorgeous. Just rub anything else that might be in that tree line. Great. Oh, that looks marvellous. I really am ever so pleased. This is very similar to what I imagined in my head, which is always a bonus. The next step, I think, is to fill the yellow centres of each daisy. So that's pretty simple. I'm just going to use a little bit of cadmium yellow and just start here. That's really made such a difference already. I think I will add a touch of cadmium orange, just to give a little bit of a dimensionality. Obviously they're going to start getting a bit smaller as you go off into the distance. Oh, this has made such a difference, hasn't it? Just adding these centres. It looks absolutely gorgeous. Marvellous. Oh, you could just leave that sky as it is, but I think I will add a touch of blue. Just going to wet that using just plain water and a bit of the Windsor blue. So I think that'll do. Really pleased with that. Hold on, let's just finish that off there. Wonderful. Well, this has turned out far better than I imagined. I'm so thrilled with the speckly effect of the toothbrush there. And overall, I think it really does remind me of that walk I took along that farmer's field a few months back.